I just need to write down one more time. What was the lizard called, Aaron? Dewback. Thank you.
Welcome everyone to this BTB short, The State of Star Wars, where four self-professed Star Wars nerds talk about, you guessed it, Star Wars. My name is Matt Smith. I'm joined here by Aaron Lashbrook,
Hello.
Brian Larson,
May the force be with you.
and the T that's in BTB, Tim Larson.
Good afternoon, good evening, or good night.
Excellent. All right. Before we get started here, a couple things. We are part of the SPDM Podcast Network. You can check out our main podcast, the BTP Movie Club, along with a ton of other great podcasts wherever you listen and download your podcasts. This project is just a bunch of opinionated, we'll say, talking about Star Wars and what we think and the state of it in past, present, and future. And we would be remiss if we did not do a spoiler warning here. We will be talking about Star Wars past, present, and future. We'll talk about characters, plots, locations, etc., etc. So if you are one of the few people who have never seen a Star Wars, please note that this is your warning. Spoilers are ahead. All right. So first and foremost, introduce everybody. I already said their names. They already said hello, but is there anything else you'd like to say, Aaron Lash, Brooke?
Yeah, I know that's the name on the screen, and that's what people always. You can just call me Aaron. That's fine. As far as introduce myself, as a Star Wars fan, lifelong. I know we'll get into specifics, but yeah, out of us here, I'm not sure about Matt, but I'm pretty sure I can say I have the most extensive action figure collection. Uh, um, don't ever refer to them as dolls. um, but yeah, I still have most. I might say all. That might be a slight lie, but like all my action figures from when I was a kid, I still have those, and I've continued to collect my whole life. So, as far as the group of us here, I think I'm the nerdiest. Uh, Try to beat me.
I would agree
Wow.
with that.
Big
I would
words.
agree with that.
Big words. All
He
right,
has
Brian.
he has life-size action figures. Don't call them
Yeah.
dolls.
Don't call them dolls. Well, now I'm gonna have to at some point. But
Yep.
you are right,
Yeah.
Aaron. I do not have any action figures. That was not my thing. So, Brian, anything you want to say?
I have lived vicariously through Aaron in Star Wars a lot, watching him collect what he has and the stormtroopers, and actually went on a trip with him to gather a couple of the items at one point. So, uh, just always been a big fan of the genre, more movies than anything else, and the action figures when I was a kid.
All right. And Tim Larson, anything you
I'm
want to say?
impressed that you called me an within the first 60 seconds of this
Now,
thing.
I didn't just call
That was just
you.
quick. That was
It's a
quick.
collective term.
I have seen all of these movies more times than anybody should, and I feel like in this group I may be the smallest Star Wars fan, which is a very weird thing for me to feel, uh, because as you mentioned, pretty nerdy about it. So let's get this thing rolling.
All right. All right. So I guess just sort of a quick question. Why did everybody agree to do this? Is it you just wanted to hear yourself talk? You want to hear other people talk? You want to show how nerdy you are, or you just were genuinely interested in spreading Star Wars love to the podverse? And that could be for anybody.
A and C.
I forget what they were now. I just said them. What did I
Have to go
say?
back and listen.
Yep, maybe the editing guy will repeat it for you.
Yeah, maybe.
I think you have a pretty good idea here. We get together and do the BTB movie club once a week. There's 7 or 8 of us talking about movies, but getting a smaller group of us to do a short run of, some kind of movie or a series, I think will be a fun thing for us to do. So, love Star Wars anyway, but I like the idea of us branching out a little bit in small group session. That's what I like about it,
Excellent.
and I somewhat enjoy talking to most of you guys.
Fair.
I like to hear myself talk.
Yeah.
The one honest man in the group, Brian
I believe
Larson.
that was
B?
C. That's
Was
why.
that B? Oh, it was C. That was C.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad you guys think it's a good idea. I hope we get some good stuff going on here. So I guess in this first episode, we're just gonna kind of do an intro here and talk about maybe our experiences with Star Wars. And so the first thing I think the easiest thing to talk about is when's the first time you actually saw something Star Wars? And I'll go first because I think I'm the youngest here. I was my first Star Wars experience. I watched Return of the Jedi on a VHS copied off of TV tape that my dad had made with the commercials and everything still in there. So I got to see all the commercial
Nice.
breaks edited for TV. I don't even remember what was different than the original now that I'm older, but that was my very, very first experience with Star Wars.
When would you say that was, Matt? Because, being that you taped it off TV, do you have any idea how old you
So
were?
let's see. Return would have been what, 82, 81,
83.
82, 83.
83.
So I want to say this is probably 87, 88, somewhere in there. I was born in 82. So just to give you guys an idea. So I'm gonna guess it was around 87 because I remember being pretty young. Um, but I do remember it. So
So this
Yeah,
is go
going
ahead,
back
man. Sorry.
through, trying to put a timeline together for myself, to talk about it, somewhat intelligently. Um, I think I didn't really watch anything until Empire Strikes Back, which I know, for you that's way early. I saw Empire Strikes Back in the theater, but as far as the timeline goes, it's like I know I had figures and stuff, um, but I don't think I saw, because just trying to look up, one of my fondest memories of Star Wars, or I guess earliest memories of Star Wars that I believed, was watching it on TV when it was CBS, I believe, at the time. And it was a big deal. I think it was national, but the affiliates kind of handled it because it was on the TV, but you could also tune and we had a big console stereo. If you have any idea what that is, looks like a giant piece of furniture, and the top lifts up, and there's a record player and an 8-track.
definitely had one of those in my house.
Okay, good. Um, but we could turn into one of the Detroit stations, and the sound came through there. I mean, it would come through your TV too, but if you had a stereo that you could put on the right station, it was like, it was the closest you could get to a theater at the time. There was no THX or any of that stuff for home theater, I don't believe. But trying to figure that out and nail that down, that didn't happen until after Empire Strikes Back came out in the theater. So, and it wasn't until after Empire came out that it was available on HBO. So, and I would have been too young. I know I didn't see A New Hope in the theater. So I don't think I saw A New Hope until after I saw Empire Strikes Back, but I know I had lots of the action figures. So somebody was preloading me that I was going to love this. But I never really put that together, that I had never seen A New Hope before I saw Empire Strikes Back. And that was kind of a weird little epiphany I've had in the last 2 days, because it just would have been impossible. Um, so, um, as far as that goes, that was a weird kind of new experience. Like, I just found out for myself that I had not seen the movies in order.
Huh.
But there was enough hype about it, enough people talking about it. It was pajamas and sheets. And like I said, I had the action figures. I knew the gist of it somehow, even before Empire came out. But, so when Empire came out in 80, I would have been 6, and that's, I know I went to the theater. My dad took me. My dad had gone with my uncle, talking to him about it, to see Star Wars when it came out. So he took me to see Empire,
Yeah,
when I was
it
6.
it is a little weird that, it kind of killed for me. It killed the whole Empire Strikes Back thing because I had already watched Return of the Jedi. I already knew Anakin was his
The big
father.
reveal.
Wasn't a huge reveal for me. No, it was a
Yeah.
cool moment, right? It's still a cool moment, but it kind of was like, oh yeah, I know all this, and I've met Yoda before, so it's not that big of a deal that you're meeting this guy. So interesting, yeah. Brian, what about you?
Mine was a action figures and toys were the first thing that started my love of Star Wars. I don't remember when I would have to say it was like video store, renting the movies at the video store. Never saw the originals or saw Return at the theater by the time 83 came around. I remember going to see that, but the first two I didn't. But VHS tapes, I remember watching them. Don't remember if it was in order, like Aaron said, was just saying. I was just trying to think of that. Did I see them in order? Did I see Jedi first, then see them? So don't really remember. I do remember actually watching the holiday Christmas special, though. My parents pushed that.
Well, that came
So
out early. The holiday
yeah,
Christmas
that was
special
like
came out early
78.
in the
Yeah.
series here.
Yeah. So I think that was kind of the thing for my mom was like, because we didn't do movies. We didn't go out to we had to go to drive-ins sometimes because you could shove all the kids in the car and pay one price for a car. But yeah, it was like we knew we were going to get some of the toys, or we didn't know, but my mom did. Obviously, she bought them and Santa brought them. But I think she was like, "Hey, you're going to watch this Christmas special of the toys I just bought you, so you love them." Like,
It's a good
so
plan.
that was, but that was my first experiences with it.
When Brian's mom plays games, she always wins. That's that's what Aunt Susie does. I saw them all in the theater. I saw A New Hope in at the drive-in in Dearborn, Michigan. I think I saw it twice. I think we went and saw it twice. I don't remember a whole lot about it except I remember my uncle laughing pretty hard when the Jawas shot R2D2 with the stun gun, and he kind of does that scream and fall over thing. Uncle Bruce and I were both laughing. I think that's for kids to laugh at, but Uncle Bruce laughed pretty hard at it too. So that was a bonding moment for us. Um, and then immediately start getting the action figures. What a genius move it was to make action figures out of that movie. I mean, other things had, I remember Battlestar Galactica had like a spaceship or whatever, but maybe that was a result of Star Wars. And maybe this is a conversation we'll get into later, but those action figures just sucked kids right in. You would have commercials on TV, especially close to Christmas, where kids had set up, action figures and toys and rocks and sandboxes and stuff in their backyard. And the commercials made you want to get action figures to go play with them and set up your own, thing. So I was in the backyard playing with them all the time. So I was hooked from the very beginning. 1977. It would have been 5, maybe. And yeah, Brian's right. Parents would just jam everybody in the station wagon, and we'd get to the drive-in theater, and they were like, "Just don't get arrested. You can leave the
Yeah.
car, just don't get arrested."
Right. Right. Yeah, and to your point, like that was one of the things George Lucas has actually given a lot of props for is retaining all that merchandise rights and building an empire, so to speak.
And being able to um, license it out like crazy. He
Oh yeah.
really wasn't picky who he licensed it to, and I don't know because like throughout the years, throughout the 4 decades of watching and listening and getting all I could of Star Wars. I don't know how much of a genius George Lucas is. Obviously the idea was his, but some of the main editing points you find out later that his first wife had a lot to do with keeping him from making huge mistakes. Same thing with Kenner. I don't know how much they had to do with that 3 3/4 inch action figure.
Mm-hmm.
I never owned a GI Joe, and I'll call that a doll. The big like foot tall.
Oh, the big
doll
tall
that
one.
came with
Yeah.
all the accessories that would be like Barbie size. No interest in it ever, but there was just something about and like I said, I don't know if it was a Kenner thing, and they're like, "Hey, we got this idea," or if George Lucas had anything to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
But just those 3 3/4 inch action figures, they were the best.
They were perfect. You could hold them in your hand and do anything you wanted with them. I mean, they were the perfect size to play with.
And I think it really helped with the price point, which wasn't anything I was interested back in the day, but
Right.
You could get 7 or 8 of them instead of one big GI Joe or whatever else was out there for the boy market.
Yeah.
The interaction with them and the bigger toys was important too. Like the way the action figures themselves could sit in a spaceship or on the back of, oh, this is embarrassing. The big animals on Tatooine.
Dewback.
Banthas? What's that?
Banthas. There's banthas and there's dewbacks.
Yeah, it
Right. The
was,
Dewback
I
was
think,
the lizard. I don't think they ever came out with a bantha.
oh, so probably the lizard then, where it had the trapdoor hole in it with a spring on it. So you'd stick the guy in the back, and that's how they would ride on those, take them out, and the trapdoor would close back up. Like, really smart way to connect the action figures to the ships and the animals and stuff.
Oh yeah, and like as a kid who was happy with all I had, and I would get the sand speeder, which you could put two in there, but I did have friends that um, had a Millennium Falcon. Another friend of the family didn't find out, had no idea. Whereas like a guy my dad worked with went over and go up to this kid's room and he's got a fucking at, and I'm like, our dads work at the same place. Does your dad own
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
But yeah, that kind of stuff, like you're saying, just the how much more you could do with it and what they were able to put out. Just I wanted it all, and I was happy with what I got.
Yeah.
It's so funny because I loved Star Wars, but I was a G.I. Joe action figure guy. I had all the G.I. Joe different action figures. So it's just funny to hear. It might have been a generational thing because obviously by the time I was born, all of the Star Wars were basically, or by the time I was playing with action figures, the Star Wars had been out for a while. So,
Right. And GI Joe did a nice thing with, I was going
They
to
did.
bring it up, the 5 points of articulations. They had shoulders,
Yep.
hips, and a head that turned. Where GI Joe, you know, they kind of like tried to take it back, and they did a really good job of it. They went to the 3 3/4 inch scale, but made knees that bent and elbows that bent and hips that twisted, and it was like, ooh,
Right.
this is a better Star Wars figure.
And that
Yep.
coincided with a cartoon that came out that
Yeah,
right.
all of us were watching, and so I started picking up GI Joe guys also, which was perfect
Absolutely.
for the backyard playing because you had immediate war stuff. You had GI
Sure.
Joe guys versus Star Wars guys. That was great.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about the movies. Did anybody, I'm gonna guess yes, but just to hear it from you guys, did anybody go see the 97 re-release in the theater of the original trilogy? Well, not the
Yep.
original trilogy, the newly altered trilogy from George
Right.
Lucas.
Absolutely. I drug
Stood in
Brian
line
to all
for it.
3 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was the one and only time I got to see the old trilogy in the theater because of my age. So I went to all of them and I got the Pepsi cans and the whatever else
Still
I
have
got
'em.
everything. It was yeah, all the things, all the things.
This is how much
That
respect I have for Aaron's collection. I got a Yoda can out of the Pepsi cans. It was
Yeah.
gold. And I was like, there's only one place this belongs in the world.
Mhm.
And so next time I visited, I made sure it made it onto one of Aaron's shelves.
Still have it. And they wanted you to empty them out and send them in, and they
Right.
would send you a closed can that was empty. I'm like, no, I want the syrup. This is the original syrup. You're not getting my syrup.
I had R2D2, I believe, and it made it through a lot of moves. I think one of our final moves with either the old house when we first got married or something, it just got lost in the shuffle, or maybe somebody threw it away. I don't have evidence of that, but there was an investigation.
Well, because
she
Jim had
threw it
brought
away,
up,
Matt.
I wasn't gonna
It's
say it
closed.
on
You're
the
editing it,
gold.
so
it's true. Yeah,
I
make
don't
a
know if
mark
it has
there.
anything to do with the gold or the being that it was Pepsi, but I do have the gold Yoda can, and it did at one point in the display case that it's in spring a leak because you can see a little brown ring around the bottom, but it resealed itself. The Darth Maul
Syrup,
Mountain
baby.
Dew next to it is fine, and you would
Yeah.
think that Mountain Dew would be the one that would eat through the can, but it was that cola.
So I guess the next question is we kind of already started talking about this organically, but what kind of made you fall in love with Star Wars? What was it that really grabbed you? If you can articulate that in a short amount of time. I know there might be a lot, but what kind of made you fall in love with Star Wars? What made it so appealing to you?
I'll go.
Sure.
For me, it was the characters. Well, I didn't know. Nobody
Yeah,
was.
no, you're fine. You're fine.
It was like a 5-minute pause there.
Brian's giggling at me. just the characters. Probably, Empire Strikes Back. You got, for me, it was always the stormtroopers. Which is weird, but I think looking back on it, there's a lot of things that seemed to stand out at the time, like my love for Empire, and then because when Jedi came out, a lot of people disagreed with me because Jedi was the upswing, the upbeat at the end. But now it seems that more and more people have set back and thought about it, and they realize that Empire out of the original trilogy is by far the best. But like I said, for me, it was probably because it was the first one I saw at the theater. But Stormtroopers, Chewbacca, Darth Vader, in that order, lightsabers, a close fourth. But I don't, Luke, the humanoid or the human characters, they're not what did it for me. I was never a giant like Han Solo boy, or Luke was always kind of whiny. But yeah, I loved Chewbacca, Stormtroopers, and I don't know what it was about the regiment and the sheer mass, especially by Empire. They were, they had the shots of like hangars of thousands of them, and I don't know, the anonymity of it all. Being a stormtrooper, I thought would just be awesome, and I never got into they couldn't hit anything. That didn't come up till later that they shot so bad. But yeah, I loved and now it's evolved into cosplay and costuming and stuff like that. But just it all seems so sweet. The armor, I don't know. Those were the things by far that Chewbacca was my favorite action figure. So that stood out, and it was those. I don't want to almost mysterious. I guess I'll throw mysterious at it. Things that weren't normal or regular or everyday.
Yeah. Yeah. Brian, what
magical, maybe magical.
The idea that, you read it, it says, in a galaxy far, far away, and then look in the stars and actually think this could be going on. When you're a kid, you don't know any better. You're thinking, hey, this is cool. And then maybe I could be a Jedi, or, I could be, I find it hilarious to be like, I wish I was a stormtrooper.
I know. Right. I'm Robin in my own fantasy.
Didn't you? Didn't you like hit your head walking through a door in one scene? No, that just the idea that this could possibly happen and you could be part of it and have fun, and then the imagination that goes along with it when you're playing with your friends, that it just was so widespread that everybody was into it. And you point your finger and you make the blast noise, everybody knew what you're doing. Or you just went,
yep.
You put two hands together and go, and you're having a light sword battle in just a minute. So it was that was just the fun of it.
Tim, what do you think?
Yeah, for me it's the Force and lightsabers. That's and thinking back as an adult, like rooting for good guys versus bad guys, cowboys and Indians, like this isn't new. Except that the way he framed the story was new. And so the idea that the Force was something that you could learn how to use was just awesome. And Luke training to use the Force was what drew me in for sure. And so I remember Aaron saying, this is way back, we used to hang out in the 90s years ago. And I remember Aaron saying Luke was just a whiny bitch. And I was like, step back. Let's not, okay, if we're going to talk Star Wars, we're not starting with that. Then I watched it through that lens and I was like, oh yeah, I kind of see what he means. I was going to get some power converters. But I think it was all about that. It was this concept of the Force, and it got kind of over explained, I think, through the 9 movies, but we can get to that at another time. But in those first couple, the idea that there were just rules to the Force, and the rules were made up by the Force, and you had to learn how to use it and control it and whatnot, and somebody was smarter than you and had to teach it to you, and that's how you were going to be this Jedi Knight thing, which was amazing, and a fighter for all that's good in the universe. I love that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think watching Jedi first actually hooked me more than anything, because then I had this end, what I thought was the end of the story, and I had to kind of go back and say, okay, well, what happened before that? I also got to see my first experience. I got Jabba the Hutt, Boba Fett. I got Luke with his green lightsaber and his mechanical hand. I got R2-D2 shooting the lightsaber out. I got C-3PO having a fit because he's fallen off. Like I feel like seeing that one first sort of like almost hooked me more. The redemption. I'm also a sucker for the hero's journey story. I know that's a pretty widely used sort of storyline, but like Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, all that stuff, just I'm a sucker for that. And so getting to watch that and watch Luke. My dad was also a big Trekkie, still is a big Trekkie. And so we watched Star Trek, and it was kind of like sci-fi, but it's just different, right? Like if you've ever watched Star Trek before, it's just different. Like it's a lot more about exploration and very episodic, and we're going to solve this problem and we're going to be good people and use science. And Star Wars is a little bit more pew pew, voom voom, as I like to say, right? And then just seeing some of, like, in that time frame, seeing the space battles in 87 whenever I saw the first. I mean, that's crazy, right? It's a trap. It's just nuts. So I think that's why. And I think shortly after that, um, whenever they sold the VHS set as a trilogy, I think very shortly after I saw it, I made my parents buy that for me because I was definitely hooked. So, yeah, it's a lot of childhood stuff. And so it sounds like what you guys are saying, the same thing, right? It's a lot of just as a child, getting your imagination going, fun things you could do, and pretend sort of you're in this other world that's possible. I like it. Um, and so I guess just to follow up with that and kind of close up this first episode here, why do we think that it's so endearing to so many? This Star Wars has as we all know, a rabid fandom, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. Why do we think, is it the same reasons we're talking about? Or is there something else to it? Or have we already kind of encapsulated that with our sort of responses? I'll just throw that
I
out.
think I think we're scratching the surface. Honestly, I mean, we just talked about the three movies pretty much in action figures. There's so many characters and subplots, and I mean, Star Wars might have been the first entity to come up with arguments about canon and what is and isn't in
Yep.
canon,
Yeah.
and created the word canon. I still don't know what it is, but the fact that it became something that one kid liked so much that he would fight another kid over,
Yep.
when we were young. Yeah, I mean, somebody said something bad about Han Solo, then it's fighting words. And, we didn't even talk about Darth Vader. We didn't get into the dark side. We didn't get into any of the other stuff that has people up in arms or in love with that. We basically were just nostalgically talking about one, Luke being a bitch, and then enjoying the Force. So there's so much more to it, and anybody can find something that they enjoy out of it.
For sure.
Even, somebody who didn't watch the movies until the last three were coming out. Then they
Right.
can find something to like.
Well, and going
That's what I
along
was
with
going to
what
say.
Brian said,
Go.
um, anybody can find something that they like about it. um, Canon, all those different things that, for better, for worse, I already brought it up. Did George Lucas do it on purpose? Did he mean it? Was he guided towards it? Like the whole idea of a trilogy. So you had every 3 years, another group of 10-year-olds falling in love with it. So whatever your first movie was, whatever backstory you had coming into it, there was something there that was either refreshing, for new people watching it, or something new, that they had never seen, or safe and secure. It's more about this story. It's more about this character that I love. I get to see more about him for those people who had seen the old one. So it kept the um, original people engaged and wanting more, and just kept hooking new people as it went along. And the more we talk about this, my kids who are in their 20s, their first movies were the second trilogy, and we can compare what I think and what they think, and
Yep.
but yeah, what Brian was saying, there's so much, and it's almost like in one movie there's maybe somebody who doesn't like Empire, but then they saw Return of the Jedi and found something they liked. So even if it was a miss the first time you saw it, it's so popular and it was such a big deal. It was such pageantry when it came out that you're gonna go see the next one, and he might get you that time.
I think this is what Brian's saying a little bit. It's the accessibility of going to see those movies with an adult and a kid.
Hmm.
They were made so that kids would enjoy them and they'd be entertaining for kids. They were also made to keep the interest of adults. And Lucas borrowed from a lot when he created this story, right? He put his original twist on it, but he borrowed from a lot. And you get that from Disney a lot. Disney's made to look like it's for kids, but Disney would always make sure there was something in there to keep adults' attention as well. And I wonder if he didn't kind of have that in mind. Like, however I'm going to do this, I need to make it so the whole family can go and enjoy it on their own sort of level, which is what Brian was saying there. I think that's the longevity thing. I think you got, I'm just remembering as a kid, so excited that the second movie was coming out. And even when it was called The Empire Strikes Back, I was freaking out. Like, oh shit, they blew up the Death Star, but now the Empire is coming back at us. What are we gonna do? You know, like I was nervous going into that movie just because of the fucking title. That's how good the marketing was for this stuff. And that I didn't really get the Han Solo Princess Leia love story going on because in 1980 let me do some math here, 7. But I think that drew the attention of other people. You know what I mean? So accessibility to different generations is probably, and also a pretty good story. That original trilogy is pretty
Yep.
good.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with everything you guys are saying. I was also going to add to your point, Brian and Tim made it too. Just everybody can find something. I think, in the late 70s, early 80s, a strong female character like Princess Leia, I'm sure appealed to many. And then they kind of continued that with the other trilogies as well, just having that. And so now you got mom and sister involved, not just dad and brother. And to your point, Tim, it's a family affair now. We're all going to go pay at the time $8-9 or less probably to go see it, and whatever. So and the merchandise and the pajamas and the bedding and the everything else just inundated in the market. So awesome. So I think that wraps it up for this first little episode of ours, unless anybody has anything they want to add.
I just need to write down one more time. What was the lizard called, Aaron?
Dewback.
Dewback. Thank you.
Dewback. Yeah.
All
All right, guys.
And Matt, what did you call Tim?
I don't remember. I don't
Okay.
recall. I don't recall anything of that nature. I don't think that happened.
Just
Anyway,
check.
so thanks everybody for playing along. We are a BTB short, the state of Star Wars. Don't forget, we are part of the SPDM podcasting network. You can check out that main cast, BTB Movie Club, wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for playing along. Look forward to seeing you in the next one.